Hey folks, what's up? Thanks for checking out I Suck at Painting. I'm pretty excited about this next little mini series of videos, as this was a viewer request. A viewer named Keith asked me to do some Ironjawz Orruks using only contrast paints, which I haven't tried to do anything with all contrast before, and I've never done Ironjawz Orruks before either. So let's see what happens. Okay, so this request was for Ironjawz Orruks with all contrast paints, and a lot of this is going to be experimenting, but I do have some ideas of what I want to do. I'm going to try to get pretty close to the box art, really with the exception of the skin. This is going to be a pretty different color, but the armor and all that stuff is going to be as close to the box art as I can kind of get using just contrast paints. So this is the model we're going to use for this experiment, and this first video is going to be just the skin. I don't have all of his armor and his accessories put on because I want to do those separately. First step for the skin is very simple. Actually, all the skin steps are pretty easy. It just takes a while because you gotta let this stuff dry. So our first step is Plague Bear Flesh, and we're just gonna use this as a filter. We're just gonna tint the skin, give it this kind of browny yellow. You don't really want to let it pool. If it does, it's not a super big deal, but we're just kind of going on real light. If you get some on here, you can just kind of spread it around. Like I said, if it pools, it doesn't matter, but that's not really the point. We're not doing one thick coat. We just want to color the skin a little bit. And this is just full strength, straight out of the pot. So I'm just going to go around and do all of the skin this way. I'll continue on doing that. You probably don't want to watch me doing that anyway. So when I finish with this very first step, I'll come back and we'll move on to the second. One thing I forgot to mention here, I'm avoiding a couple areas on the face. If you get them, it's not a big deal. You can tidy up later, but I'm trying to avoid the eyes and the teeth as much as I can. It'll just make it faster later. So again, you probably don't want to watch me do this, and I don't blame you, so I'll come back. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, on the face there are some things that I'm avoiding. Trying to avoid the eyes, the teeth, and the bottom lip. If you get some on there, it's not a big deal. You can tidy up later. But if you can avoid them, it'll just make it easier. And again, I'm sure you don't want to watch me do this, and I don't blame you. So as soon as I'm done, I will come back. Okay, this Plague Bear Flesh is dry. While I was finishing that up, I kind of noticed avoiding the fingernails. We'll just make things faster later too. But if you get some on there, like I said, it's not a big deal. Just use a primer color to tidy up. We're going to do that probably a few times. Now, since the contrast paint itself is pretty thin as far as once it's dry, and considering we put on such a thin coat on this guy anyway, I would recommend putting a coat of varnish over this layer for sure. So I'll do that, and we'll come back and we'll throw on the next color. With our initial filter color dry, we're going to move on to the next color, which I'm going to use this Militarum green, and I'm going to mix it about 50-50 with contrast medium. So get one drop of this, should be enough. Oh, there's 2 drops. Oh wow. Get a contrast medium in here. So that's about half and half. So we're just going to be applying this as you pretty much normally would with any contrast, regular layer. But we are going to do something a little bit different on the very highest spots on the muscles and the sharpest details on the face. I have a Q-tip that's soaked with the contrast medium. We're just going to pull some of that off. So we're just going to start on the hand here. Just apply it as we normally would. Q-tip, we're just going to touch on our highest points. This is probably going to be best to do section by section. So, you know, like do one hand and pull off, and then move on to another part, pull that off. Whoops, sorry. And continue on in that way. Let's do this one arm here so we can kind of see. Let's do this one. Kind of see what we do for the knuckle, or for the muscly parts. I'm gonna try not to get on his body too much. Sorry, keep bumping the camera. Gotta find a better position for this camera. Kind of want to pull it off the top of his head. And let's just hit the high bits here. Cheekbones. And that's about it for this step. I'll go ahead and finish and come back when done and dry. Okay, now that our Militarum green is dried and I've moved my camera, so hopefully I don't keep bumping it. Our next step is going to be doing a wash with the Magos purple. We're going to thin this down pretty far. We're going to thin this down like 1 part purple to like 4 parts contrast medium. And we're just going to put an all over wash on this. But we're only going to let it pool really in the deepest recesses, because we still want some of this green shadowing to stay. We're just going to add some to the very darkest parts with this purple. And we're just going to slap it on. I'm going to kind of go section at a time, just like before, so that we can pull off anything we don't want, like up in here. We want to get rid of that. So what this is going to do is it's going to give us some darker shadows, but it's also going to give us a little more color information rather than just green. We're going to have a little bit of other hues in here and pull it away from any of the more shallow details towards the darker ones. This whole process is quite easy and it's pretty fast. I mean, you know, as with anything contrast paint, the bulk of the time spent is waiting for it to dry. Alright, that looks pretty good for the skin. His hands real quick. And we'll let this dry. Come back with the very last parts. Alright, our skin is all dried. I had originally thought about doing some other things on top of this, but now that it's totally dry, I think I kind of like the look the way it is. I don't want to make this, you know, too complicated, as this is kind of meant to be fairly simple and fairly fast. So we'll just leave it at that. So we're going to change course a little bit and we'll go ahead and do the pants, considering it's kind of on the same layer inside to outside as the skin basically. And this is really super easy. We're just going to do one layer full strength of black Templar, and once that dries then we'll go back and do a second coat, but the second coat we're going to thin about 50-50, so we can leave a little bit of the lighter color on top and darken up the shadows a bit. This is just regular contrast paint, one thick coat style, so you don't really need to see me do this either. I'll finish this up, and then really all there's left to do after that is the mouth, eyes, fingernails, and then the skin will be done and we'll call it good. Alright, come back when this is finished. Alright, while I was letting the pants dry, I went ahead and did the eyes. I didn't really think I needed to show that. I just tidied up the eyeballs with a drop of the primer color and then just dropped in a drop of Blood Angel's Red, and that's it. Easy. So we can move on to the fingernails, and I'm just going to show you on one of the fingernails because obviously you do them all the same, so you see one you'll know how to do it. Alright, I think we'll do this one over here. So what we're going to do is get a small brush and we're going to use our, what is this called? Acalian green, which is actually really blue. And we're going to do the same thing basically we did for the first step of the skin. We're just going to basically filter these. So we're not trying to make any pooling, we're just coloring. That's pretty much it. So I will finish up all of these and come back and we'll do the next step. Okay, so the second step of the fingernails was basically just throwing some black Templar on top of the blue. It's kind of a sneak peek of how we're going to do the dark armor on these guys. And as the black recedes, you get a little bit of that blue underneath. Not much, just because these fingernails are so small. But that's why we did the blue first. So I didn't really think you needed to see that. It was just putting black on top of there. We're going to finish this guy. We'll go on to the mouth. Let me find a good brush here. Okay, use this one, sure. So for the mouth, the teeth, we're just going to mash some skeleton horde on there. Then for the lips, well, the bottom lip, we'll do like a 50-50 mix of Magos Purple and Contrast Medium. We'll see how that looks, and if it's not good, we'll adjust. So I'm just going to mash this skeleton horde in here. Putting it in here fairly heavy. Just letting it pool. And that's pretty much it. When that's dry, maybe that's a little bit much. I'm going to pull a little bit away. When that's dry, we'll come back and do the lips. Now with the teeth dry, I just have a mix, 50-50 mix, Magos Purple and Contrast Medium. And we're going to do this real light. I went with the mix instead of going straight because we can always go more layers to make it a little easier to see rather than going full strength right away. We're just going to kind of touch this on. Let it sit and dry and build it up that way until we get the color we want rather than just going full purple. Alright, well, I think that's pretty good. So we'll call the skin video done here. Hopefully you found this helpful, interesting. The next video we'll go on and do the armor, and then I don't know, maybe we'll finish the whole thing next time. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be 3 parts. We'll just have to see. The armor part is going to be pretty easy. Actually, this was pretty easy too. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you found it interesting. Please go downstairs and do all the things. Hit like and share and the bell and the subscribe and the Apocalypse Now button.